Hello and welcome, fellow users of the internet. My name is Noah and you're watching Asphodel Merchants. Alright, we're here to the end. Last, but most certainly not least, we've got Colorless for our Wilds of Eldraine limited tier list. Thank you to everybody who's watched all the videos so far. Thank you for making it to this one too. Good luck in all your events that are coming up soon preemptively. Hopefully we'll all keep learning stuff together. Alright, first up we've got Agatha's Soul Cauldron. 2 colorless for a legendary artifact. You may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to activate abilities of creatures you control. Creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them have all activated abilities of all creature cards exiled with Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Tap. Exile target card from a graveyard. When a creature card is exiled this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I unfortunately think this card's going to be a D. People think it has some constructed implications, and that's nice. However, this ultimately just reads 2 colorless, tap, exile target creature card from a graveyard, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature control. That is an okay enough ability. It's a little rare and odd, but I think just asking the scenario of, okay, I'm going to finally find the creature in the graveyard, exile it with the cauldron, give the activated ability to my creature, and I'm still going to have mana that I wasn't doing that I didn't already have something to do with it with. Like, don't know if that's actually going to happen. D right now for Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Alright, next up we have Candy Trail. 1 colorless for an artifact food clue. When Candy Trail enters the battlefield, scry 2, pay 2 mana, tap, sacrifice Candy Trail. You gain 3 life and you draw a card. A for Candy Trail. It's always going to be really good. I'm pretty sure you're always going to want this card. Like 3 mana for gain 3, scry 2, draw a card is just so much. Maybe some of the most hyper-aggressive decks won't want it, but it costs 1 mana, and they want to trigger Celebration, so they kind of do want it. I just don't think you're not going to play this card. It's mega good. It goes in every deck. Just take Candy Trail and play it. Alright, next up we've got Collector's Vault. 2 colorless for an artifact. Pay 2, tap, draw a card, then discard a card, create a treasure token. This card seems a little innocuous, but I'm still talking myself into it. It just does pretty much everything. I'm going to give it a C, because it is a little on the slow side. Even some of your more mid-range decks might not necessarily want it, but they could. The control decks do. The most hyper-aggressive decks could maybe play a copy, but who knows yet. A tentative C for Collector's Vault, I could definitely see it performing a lot better than that. So, we'll definitely see. Alright, next up we have Ariet's Tempting Apple. 4 colorless for a legendary artifact. It's a food. When Ariet's Tempting Apple enters the battlefield, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature. It gains haste until end of turn. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice the apple, you gain 3 life. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice, target opponent loses 3 life. The card's pretty cool. We've never seen a colorless threaten before. I'm going to put this in B. I'm probably wrong, but it could be mega cool. If you steal a token creature your opponent controls, you can always bargain it. And, if you do this, if you cast the apple, attack, get in some of the extra damage, and get him down to 3, and kill him. Card can do a lot of damage in colorless, and it's a colorless threaten. I want people to try it. I want it to be good. I want to threaten stuff in blue-white. Who knows? Yeah, B for Ariet's Tempting Apple. Next up, we got Ginger Brute. 1 colorless for an artifact creature. It's a food golem. It's a 1/1. It has haste and pay 1. Ginger Brute can't be blocked this turn except by creatures with haste. Can't catch me. I'm the gingerbread man. That's the joke, by the way. And pay 2, tap, sacrifice Ginger Brute. You gain 3 life. It's a food. It's a C. It's a pretty good C. Enough decks are going to want it. Enough decks aren't. And you'll figure it out whenever you get it. The green-back food decks will want this. Even the aggressive decks will want it. Probably something like the green decks or the rat decks aren't going to... The The green-blue decks aren't going to want it, and the rat decks aren't going to want it. So, that kind of thing. Alright, next up we have Hilda's Crown of Winter. 3 colorless for a legendary artifact. Pay 1, tap target creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate during your turn. Oh yeah, during my turn. Alright. Pay 3, sacrifice Hilda's Crown of Winter. Draw a card for each tap creature your opponent controls. By the way, it's not pay 3 tap, so you can activate it and then pay the 3 and do it all in the same turn. Oh man, the thing moved on me weird. Okay, get back up there. This is an A+. This is the A-est of pluses. It's the iciest of manipulators. This card's amazing. It's the #1 card I think you want to open in draft. It goes in every single deck. It's good for aggressive decks that want to tap blockers to get through them. It's good for defensive decks who want to tap attackers to not lose life. Worst comes to worst, it draws you a card or 2. This card's absolutely amazing. I can't wait to get to play with it. Alright, next up we have the Iron Crag. 2 colorless, legendary artifact, tap, add 1 colorless. Whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have the Iron Crag become a legendary equipment artifact named Everflame Hero's Legacy. If you do, it gains equip 3, and equipped creature gets +3/+3, and loses all other abilities. This is an absolute F. It definitely wins the award for the most disappointing card in the entire set. Whenever I realized, like, oh, hey, they get it, it's the Sword in the Stone. I loved Camelot, the animated movie that Disney didn't make, and that's not the point. I mean, I have no idea why they had to tack on this loses all other ability. Literally every other legend in the set gets worse whenever it loses all their abilities and just gets +3/+3. Your opponent just blocks it with a 1/1 or their 2/2, and then nothing happens. I have no idea why we would ever play this ludicrously terrible card. It's an F. Don't at me. Alright, next up we have Prophetic Prism. 2 colorless for an artifact. Enters the battlefield, you draw a card, pay 1 tap, add a mana of any color. You know, it fixes, it does the stuff. Most importantly, it draws a card, and then you can bargain it. It is a C for Prophetic Prism. It's nothing all that exciting, though. Alright, next up we've got Scarecrow Guide. 2 colorless for an artifact creature. It's a Scarecrow. It's a 2/1 with reach. We finally get a Scarecrow that doesn't have Defender or is a 0/4 or something silly. And it's got pay 1, add 1 mana of any color, activate only once each turn. This card's like a D. Not that impressive. 1, toughness creatures are very vulnerable. I've said it a lot. I'm going to keep saying it because it's the truth. This card's just not that impressive. They never are. Alright, next up we got Soul Guide Lantern. 1 colorless for an artifact. When Soul Guide enters the battlefield, exile a target card from a graveyard, sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern, exile each opponent's graveyard, pay 1 mana, sacrifice Soul Guide Lantern, draw a card. This card is a D. It is not the most outrageous thing ever to pay 1 mana to kind of suspend to pay 1 mana later and draw a card, but it's certainly not that good. There might be some graveyard stuff you need to deal with, so remember you've got it in your card pool. It's a D for Soul Guide Lantern. Alright, next up we have Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender. 2 colorless for a legendary artifact creature, Food Knight. It's a 3/1. Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender, has Trample, Hexproof, and Haste as long as an opponent controls a Planeswalker. Whenever another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on Sir Ginger and scry 1. Pay 2, sacrifice Sir Ginger, you gain life equal to its power. So the first whole paragraph of this card is flavor text. You know, the anti-Planeswalker cards were never a thing really before, and now that there's only 1 in the whole set, it's going to be even less of an issue. So, I think this card, you know, the joke is whenever you sacrifice your treasures and your food, the card gets stronger. So as for right now, I'm just going to put Sir Ginger in B because you can always just block it, but it does help gain you life later, but I don't think it's that impressive of a rare. Alright, next up we've got 3 Bowls of Porridge. 2 colorless for an artifact food. It's got 2 tap, choose one that hasn't been chosen. 3 Bowls of Porridge deals 2 damage to target creature. This porridge is too hot. It's got a second ability, tap target creature. This porridge is too cold. And the third one is sacrifice 3 bowls of porridge and you gain 3 life. This bowl of porridge is just right. Hope you enjoyed that little joke. 3 bowls of porridge Is he gonna act like a bee? Okay, it's a little inefficient though. It's 2 mana to pay 2, and then you've got to have it. Each thing has got to work. It is always, in all truth, all gonna work though. You might not always be able to deal 2 damage to a creature, but who knows? You could always, go for a bit of a silly attack your 2/2 into their 4/4, then as long as you've got the 4 mana, play this, then tap it, and then do it. So who knows? Maybe. I do still think it's only going to be a C though. Alright, next up we got Crystal Grotto. Enters the battlefield, scry 1, tap, add a colorless, pay 1, add a mana of any color in your mana pool. It's an F. There's like a reason or two to maybe put in your deck, but they're like less than 5% of the decks you'll ever build will meet that, and so I'm not even going to talk about it that long. F for Crystal Grotto. Next up we have Edgewall Inn. Edgewall Inn enters the battlefield tapped. Edgewall Inn enters the battlefield, choose a color, add 1 mana of the chosen color, pay 3, sacrifice Edgewall Inn, return target card that has an adventure from your graveyard to your hand. It's basically pay 3 mana, return 2 spells to your hand. It's outrageously good. It is an A. It's probably trending towards A+. I could maybe see a world where you don't really have any adventure cards in your deck, and then for that reason you wouldn't. But literally, you will actually play this in any single deck because it always taps for the color of your choice of whatever basic you don't have in your hand at the time. And you know what? No, screw it. I'm putting it in A+. It really is that good. Like you'll literally put it in like every deck except the hyperest of aggro decks. And so like 90% of the decks this is going to go in. It's always going to go in there. Well, you might not take it in draft for certain power level reasons. It'll always make your deck in sealed though. In sealed as an A+ is good. You know what? I want people to play this card. I want you to see this in the A+ slot during pre-release whenever you just look at the thumbnail, because I know that's how some people do me, but that's fine. See this in the A+ thumbnail, always put in your sealed deck. That's going to be correct. A+ for Edgewall Inn. Next up, we've got Evolving Wilds. Evolving Wilds I will put in regular A. You'll pretty much always put it in your deck because it does help fix you. You'll even just put it in your 2-color decks. A for Evolving Wilds, but it is passable, that is to say. Alright, next up, I probably should have put these in gold, but they're fine here. We have our new cycle of creature lands, getting some redemption for the old bad ones in the middle Zendikar block. We got Restless. First up, we've got Restless Bivouac. It enters the battlefield tapped. They all do. Tap, add a red or a white. Pay 1 colorless, red and a white. The Bivouac becomes a 2/2 red white ox creature token until end of turn. It's still a land. And when Restless Bivouac attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. This one I am going to give a mere C2. First, I will mention with all of these kind of help you splash because they're dual lands, and they help you fix even in their normal cards. But Restless Bivouac, very specifically, being in the hyper-aggressive red-white celebration decks, they really don't want to play a tapped land at all. And on top of that, if you're playing this to help you splash, you can't really have that many other sources to help activate them, so then they become a lot worse, especially the Restless Bivouac. I'm only going to give it a C, especially paying the mana to make it a 2/2, and then it has to get into the attacks and survive, and 3 toughness is still pretty vulnerable from a lot of the cards we've seen. Candy Grapple kills this even on the attack. The destroy target creature, it's either mana value or yeah, that one might kill all of them. But yeah, it definitely kills it. The 1 mana red spell bargain burn kills it. Rest of the Bivouac's pretty vulnerable. Be careful about playing it, but it could work out in a mid-ranger red-white deck. Alright, next up we have one of the better ones. We got Restless Cottage. Tap, add black or a green. Pay 2 colorless, green, and a black. Restless Cottage becomes a 4/4 black and green creature until end of turn. It's still a land. When it attacks, create a food token and exile up to 1 target card from a graveyard. This card pretty good. I think I will give it a regular A. It only goes specifically in black-green, really. But you could possibly put this in a 3-color deck and find the other card eventually, and in the late game this still won't be too bad to activate. And even if they kill it, as long as you got to declare it as the attacker, you'll get a food token out of the deal. So A for Restless Cottage, somewhat build around of you do have to have both forests and swamps in your deck. Alright, next up we have Restless Fortress. Gonna give it the same grade. Yeah, these are kind of build around grade in the fact they have to be in this exact color, but you never know. Same thing. This one could also be activated late. And it taps for white or a black, pay 2 colorless white and a black. It becomes a 1/4 black nightmare creature until end of turn. It's still a land. And when it attacks, defending player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. Alright, the next one, however, is an F. Restless Spire is terrible. It is a battlefield tapped, add a red or a blue, pay blue or red. It becomes a 2/1 blue and red elemental creature token with as long as it's your turn. This creature has first strike, it's still a land. When it attacks, scry 1. This card is going to die to literally anything. It is so unbelievably bad. I guess I would put it in just to fix, but it is still a guild. It's only a guild gate, and it's only a guild gate, and specifically red and blue. This card sucks. Alright, next up we have Restless Vinestalker. I think it's fair enough to call it an A. It taps for green or blue, and 3 colorless green and a blue until end of turn. It becomes a 5/5 green and blue plant creature token. It's still a land, and whenever it attacks up to 1 other target creature has base power and toughness, 3/3 until end of turn. Okay, so that's all of that. It's over. Thank you, everyone who watched this through to the end. You are hopefully on your way to do great things in this limited environment. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below. Tell me whatever you want. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And share this playlist with anybody who you think is going to be wanting to do better at their pre-release or any limited RCQs that are coming up soon. Really do appreciate all of the time you guys spend watching my content. It really does make it all worth it. Thank you so much for your time, and goodbye.